Just listen to the new Boris Johnson apologist, spouting off the same old party line, the same script as before. Nothing new, nothing to give us hope that we might see a change, that we might see something new, that we might see Boris Johnson actually be a Prime Minister.
You are the third Chancellor in Boris Johnson's government. The first, Sajid Javid, resigning yesterday, said that the vote of no confidence that was held into Boris Johnson was a moment for humility, grip and new direction. I regret to say that this situation will not change under your leadership, the Prime Minister's. Will the Prime Minister change?
Well, I think what you saw last night from the Prime Minister in that interview was an apology. He explained that, with the benefit of hindsight, he'd made a mistake in appointing Chris Pincher to the position of Deputy Chief.
So he is changing.
You know this, Tom. Tom, you know this because you've been close to politics. That we make decisions, whether it's Secretaries of State, Chancellors or Prime Ministers, at warp speed. The PM was at a Commonwealth summit, a G7 summit, a NATO summit, and we don't get every decision right every time. But I think actually it's good leadership to come out and say that I made a mistake and I'm sorry for that. And as part of my role,
it was forced
and
out
taking collective responsibility.
It was forced out of him. He could have said this on Sunday. He could have said it on Monday or Tuesday. He said that he forgot. When did the Prime Minister remember that he was aware of specific allegations and investigations into Chris Pincher?
Right, so let's look at the that particular allegation that was made against Chris Pincher whilst he was in the Foreign Office. That was investigated and it was resolved. The Foreign Secretary would have been briefed about this.
Yep. So when did the Prime Minister remember
and
that?
I think the Prime Minister is right to apologise, because with the benefit of hindsight, look, you know this, Tom, because you've been there yourself. We make decisions literally at warp speed, and the Prime Minister was in the middle of three big summits, right? And this happens. The right thing he did, in my view, was to come out and very, very openly say, look, with the benefit of hindsight, I made a mistake.
Sorry, but I come back to the critical issue then is, well, if he'd forgotten, if he had glossed over it because he was very busy making decisions at warp speed, at what stage in the last few days did the Prime Minister remember that he had been briefed about those specific allegations regarding Chris Pincher?
Well, again, all I would say to you is when the Prime Minister realised he'd made a mistake, he came out and explained that.
So
he said, with the benefit of hindsight, that I made a mistake. I think that's good leadership to come out and say that, to say, look, I don't get every decision right.
So he remembered
he does get the big calls, right? And you know that on vaccine, of course, on
with respect to you not quite answering my question. The question is when the Prime Minister remembered about that he was told around Chris Pincher. Did he remember yesterday?
All I can say to you is that the Prime Minister makes decisions, as you know, every single day on many, many subjects, gets briefed all the time about all sorts of issues. When he realised he had made a mistake, because with the benefit of hindsight, he shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher. He came out and apologised for it. And I think that's in my view, that's the right thing to do. And now focus on delivery. So we've got the second half of Parliament to focus on this.
He didn't forget, did he? The truth is, he didn't forget. He knew he'd been briefed. He tried to style it out. He got caught, and he had to apologise, and it's led to the resignation of some of your colleagues. How can anyone trust a word that comes out of Downing Street?
Well, first of all, I don't agree with you. I think actually I trust the word of a Prime Minister who's big enough to come out and apologise and say, I made a mistake. With the benefit of hindsight, I shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher to the role of Deputy Chief. My government is one where anybody feels they've in any way been abused or harassed, or in any way feels that they need to make a complaint, should come forward and make a complaint. And there is no room in his government for abuse of power.
Have been embarrassed on the media this week because they cannot trust what Downing Street has been telling them about this specific issue. They've had to distance themselves from the very heart of the Johnson government because they can't trust what they're being told. Why should the public?
You agreed with me a few moments ago that we make decisions at warp speed in government. We don't get every decision right. I think it's important to put that on the record.
There's a difference between getting decisions wrong
and when you get decisions wrong, you should come out and...
Yes, there's a difference between U-turning and misleading.
Well, I think the Prime Minister did the right thing to come out and explain and apologise.
But he misled for 5 days. Downing Street misled your colleagues in Cabinet. They misled ministers about the facts around this, because the Prime Minister did get briefed about specific allegations on Chris Pincher, didn't he?
But you also agree with me that the Prime Minister has had 3 summits, international summits to deal with, is making decisions at speed, warp speed, as I described it earlier, and made a mistake, right? We agree on that, Tom. If we agree on that, do you then agree that he made the right decision to come out and apologise and explain that with the benefit of hindsight, he shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher?
Hindsight was known in advance.
That's a yes.
The hindsight was known in advance. He got caught telling mistruths, arguably, again.
Hold on a second. First of all, the allegations in the Foreign Office, when he was Foreign Secretary, were investigated and resolved.
When he knew about them.
All I'm saying to you is, when you're making decisions and being briefed, and then moving on to the next big decision that you need to make as Foreign Secretary, it's only right that if you make a mistake, you come out and admit it. That's what the Prime Minister did. I genuinely say to you that he did the right thing. That's good leadership in my book. Those people who are egging us on, by the way, to get rid of the Prime Minister are people like Alistair Campbell. And wherever Alistair Campbell is at, you want to be on the other side of that argument.
Well, tell that to Sajid Javid. Tell that to Rishi Sunak. They have left government last night because they do not, in part, trust the Prime Minister. How can...
Well, they work very hard.
Trust him and they don't?
So they worked very hard in government. They've written to the Prime Minister. He's written back to them, acknowledging their hard work. In my view, there are no easy options here. We've got to make sure that we, as a team, stick together, focus on delivery, because ultimately, what we'll be judged on. People are struggling with their weekly shop.
They've walked away when the opportunity.
No, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe. All I'm saying to you is people are struggling with their electricity bills, with their weekly shop. There is war waging on our continent. We have to rebuild the economy. That's very much my focus, and grow the economy. We've got to deliver on the skills agenda that I was so passionate about and focused on. I want to make T levels as famous as A levels, so people have different runways for their career to take off on. We've got to make sure we deliver on national security abroad and at home. 13,500 more police officers on our streets. That backlog of the NHS, Steve Barclay will continue to bear down on. We've got to bear down on inflation. And we've just delivered the biggest personal tax cut in a decade. That is what your listeners are interested in.
Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak are on the same side as you mentioned Alistair Campbell in not trusting the Prime Minister. Why is that?
So, with all the respect for Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, I genuinely think that this is not the time to divide. This is the time to come together and to deliver for the country. We have some massive challenges. We have a global battle against inflation at the moment that's raging in the US, in Germany, in Canada, and here in the UK. And we have to make sure we focus on this. Turning on one another does not deliver those additional pounds into people's accounts, £330 today into 30 million people's accounts. Why? Because we're focused on being on the side of those who are really hard pressed.
Okay, final question then, Chancellor. Can you rule out an early general election?
So the Prime Minister will make a decision on any general election. All I can say to you, my focus and
you talked to him about that decision?
Work. No, but my focus is very much on making sure we rebuild the economy post the pandemic. The cost of the war in Ukraine, the illegal invasion of the Ukraine, people understand there is a cost to that.
Sure. But the Prime Minister
bearing down on inflation.
The Prime Minister told Nick last week that it would be a very bad decision to have an early general election. Is that still the case?
He will make that decision, and ultimately my role is to make sure I deliver.
Quite a no.
Well, no. All I'm saying to you is the Prime Minister will make that decision. But what he said to Nick Ferrari, and that's on record. All I'm saying to you is that our focus in the second half of this parliament is to make sure I rebuild the economy and grow the economy, that we deliver on the infrastructure investment that we're making, that we deliver for those hard-pressed families that need that £330 that we delivered today in the first personal tax cut in a decade. Those should be our focus, because ultimately, what the polls say today is a snapshot of public opinion.
Does Boris Johnson think the British people are stupid? How long is he going to take us for fools? So now we have the new apologist, Nadim Zahawi, in his first day on the job, spouting the same old party line, the same old rhetoric what we've had previously. In his first day of office, he's already apologising for Boris Johnson's lies, spouting the same old script as the previous apologists that I've done in the last few days, weeks and months. He blames warp speed decisions for the mistake. Are we expecting Boris to make the big decisions with truth, honesty and integrity when he can't even tell the truth about the allegations against one of his own ministers? Two top ministers have left because they can't trust Boris anymore. They've quit. They had great jobs, they were in great positions and possibly future leaders of the party, and they've left because they can't trust Boris, along with a number of junior ministers, so far about 9. Nadim says this is not the time to divide, but the time to come together. He needs to tell how long Boris Johnson. He's the one that's dividing the country. So now we have the one that's causing anguish amongst the people, amongst the nation. First day, when we're looking for leadership, when we're looking for integrity from those we put in charge. The same old rhetoric. It's time for a general election. Let the people decide whether they trust Boris or not. For Boris Johnson's lies. My name's Macca. The same this old True Radio UK as the previous Thanks for listening. Please subscribe that I've done in the last few days, weeks and months.